The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation, the cold-blooded murders of Spencer and Monique Tepe, a young couple with young children who are now orphaned. Here's the story. 5 years ago, Spencer and Monique Tepe were married in a small, intimate wedding inside their beautiful Columbus, Ohio home. And inside that home, they were raising a family. 2 young children, just 1 and 4 years old. Spencer worked about an hour away as a dentist. Colleagues say he loved his job and showed up on time every day with a big smile, full of energy and ready to serve his patients. So when Spencer did not show up to work on December 30th, his colleagues thought something was wrong. And they were 100% right. Inside the house, behind locked doors, those 2 young children were heard crying. Also inside the house, Spencer and Monique were found shot and killed. No weapon left behind, just shell casings. Now investigators have made an arrest that leaves many questions still unanswered, like how did the killer get inside? And why would he do this to this wonderful family? It was the biggest mystery in the country, and now it has apparently been solved, at least according to investigators and prosecutors in Ohio. Let's bring in Core TV field reporter Cody Thomas, who is live tonight in Columbus, Ohio. Cody, great to see you. Michael McKee is the name of the man who's arrested today, Michael David McKee. What happened in court today?
Well, Vinny, it was a very brief appearance lasting less than 2 minutes, and it took place in Illinois because that's where he was arrested in Rockford, Illinois, right outside of Chicago. Now, we saw him walk into a courtroom, and we also heard him speak alongside his attorney. Take a listen to this.
Can you answer for the record? Michael McKee. Have you had a chance to speak with him?
Yes, Your Honor.
What's your position at this time?
Yes, at this time, Your Honor, on behalf of Mr. McKee, I will assert his right to counsel. I will assert his right to remain silent. And Mr. McKee believes that the most expeditious manner in which he may defend himself against the charges pending in Ohio and to plead not guilty would be to waive his right to an extradition hearing and to have a governor's warrant and to agree to his immediate transportation to Ohio.
So, Vinny, that was McKee's attorney waiving his right to an extradition hearing. But what are the charges that Michael McKee are facing? Well, we do know that the 39-year-old is facing 2 charges of aggravated premeditated murder. Now, he's due back in court on January 19th. The judge did not specify exactly when he would be transferred here to Ohio, but a hearing on the status of that transfer is scheduled for January 19th.
All right, let's talk about the connection now between Michael McKee and the victims here, Spencer and Monique Tepe.
Well, Vinny, we do know that Michael McKee and Monique Tepe were once married a little over a decade ago. That is the connection there. He is the ex-husband of the female victim in this gruesome crime. But first, Vinny, before we get into the marriage and the divorce history, let's talk about who Michael McKee is as a person and not the criminal. Now, we do know that he is a doctor, and his specialty is vascular surgery, and he has active medical licenses in the states of Illinois and California. Now, like both Monique and Spencer Tepe, he graduated from Ohio State University, graduating from their College of Medicine there in 2014. Here's a picture of McKee and Monique Tepe. Now, this is from their wedding day. This is from the New York Post, posted to Facebook by user Phyllis Williams. You see them there. And Vinny, now let's dive into some of that marriage and divorce history here. Now, Michael McKee and Monique Sabatersky, that was her maiden name. That's what she was known as back then. They were married in 2015. But then they divorced after less than 2 years, Vinny, only a year and 10 months together. The reason given was, quote, the parties are incompatible. Now, important to note, they did not have children and they weren't living in the same state, of course, when they divorced. And Vinnie, also friends and family gathered for a celebration of life here in Columbus, Ohio on the Sunday after McKee's arrest to remember Spencer and Monique. And of course, we saw people walking inside the funeral home that day to pay their respects. So Vinnie, allegedly, it's the ex-husband. The ex-husband of a decade ago. Was he still jealous after a decade? Is this pent-up rage still a decade later? This is all alleged, but he is the man in custody now.
Yeah, this is surprising, right? Usually you talk about an ex, you're talking about maybe they're fighting over children, have some sort of a custody battle, or it's a very recent wound. But here, as Cody has said, they got married 10 years ago. The marriage didn't last long at all. By the end, by the time it was finalized, they're not even living in the same state. That brings us to the first question in our investigation tonight, and it is, why would Michael McKee allegedly do it now? Right? Like if it's a fresh, we just got divorced, and now she's seeing someone else, or this is a decade after they got married. Why would he allegedly do it now? Joining me to help answer that question, host of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast, Joel Waldman is with us, and host of the 13th Juror podcast and Crime Junkie Jury, Brandy Churchwell, with us as well. Great to see you both. All right, Joel, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts here? And I don't know if you've uncovered anything, but I mean, this seems strange to me because he's an ex, but he's an ex from a decade ago, from a short marriage with no kids.
Yeah, Vinny, we just had a licensed marriage therapist on. I asked that question. Have you ever heard of someone exacting revenge after this many years? And the short answer was no. Something that people both on the web and we have independently uncovered this is the marriage, as you stated, was dissolved back in 2017. They were actually only really together for about 8 months, even though it took about 2 years for the dissolution of marriage. But in 2025, September 2025, just a few months back, something appeared on a docket. And I also had the Deputy Attorney General of Ohio on Surviving the Survivor just now. And we were trying to decipher what that was specifically. Why was this thing on the docket? He couldn't make it out. I still have not been able to make it out. Others have taken jabs at what it might be. I don't know if Brandy has an answer, but that could be a critical piece of evidence as to what triggered him all these years later.
Yeah, that is kind of bizarre. I mean, it wasn't, they're not fighting over kids. You don't accumulate that many assets. You're only together for 8 months. It's, it's a blip on the screen when it comes to family law. This is like one of the easy ones. Brandy, what are your thoughts tonight about why he would allegedly do it now?
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with Joel. Spouses typically don't kill years later, but when it does happen, it's almost always after a trigger. So this court situation that is popping back up on the docket after, however many years, and I think there was a court date set for September is the one Joel was talking about. So in this case, because of these potential divorce-related matters coming back onto the court docket with a date set, that could have potentially reopened something that was never emotionally resolved. And we have actually seen this before. There was the case of Amy Harwick, where she had dated Gareth Pursehouse like a decade before. There were, reports of her. She was scared of him. He was stalking her, but they had gone on, in their own lives. But when they ran into each other, like a decade later, that triggered something in him. And then he ended up coming back and killing her. And he was actually convicted a few years ago. So that's the only case that I can think of where something happened this much farther. But in that case as well, it's after many years, but there's something that triggers that emotional spark.
Yeah. Well, if, looking back on when they graduated and when the marriage was, there may have been some connection that they had more of a history going all the way back to Ohio State when they were all going to school there. But Joel, the other thing is that this guy's an accomplished surgeon. He's a vascular surgeon. There's not a lot of them in the country. I think there's only a few thousand in the nation that do this type of surgery. That's the other shocking part of this, right? Is that, all right, as a surgeon, can you move on? Can you find someone else? How could this suddenly become the obsession of your life?
Yeah, I think it's always hard to put ourselves into other people's shoes. And I think, you always project. I come from a family of all doctors. I am the black sheep, Vinnie. And, I look at them as big successes. And most people are going to look at vascular surgeons as very successful people. He happened to have a difficult time. I mean, he graduated from medical school, but according to all reporting, he was not able to pass his board examination. So it's akin to being a lawyer without a bar exam. You're an attorney, but you can't do certain things. You can't practice. Someone said he was dealing in quote unquote varicose veins as a vascular surgeon. So maybe that was part of it. That's something we talked about on the show. Was he so frustrated in his career as a medical doctor that it seeped over into his, deep personal rage? And that was a trigger as well. But also, we know this, and I'd say this to anybody in my family or yours, Vinnie, doctors come with some big egos, especially surgeons. And maybe he felt, if I can't have this woman, nobody will.
Yeah. And Brandy, the other part of it is the contrast. Monique's life was seemingly amazing and amazingly happy. Mm-hmm. 2 young children, a husband who was full of personality, loved at work, very successful, and they're building this amazing life, which may be a stark contrast to what was going on with the accused here.
Yeah, and if he has any kind of sense of blaming her for any of his shortcomings or any of his issues or any of the problems that he's facing, and she's gone on to live this happy life, that can also be very triggering for people. So that could also be another potential explanation for everything. I think that in this case, because we have so little information, it's causing us to just hold on to every little detail we can get and kind of speculate, but I can't help but wonder if that could be part of it.
Yeah, it's a piece of the big picture here, and I think what you were talking about, if there was some sort of a court date in September, what on earth was that all about? Okay, Joel and Brandy are going to stick with us. Coming up next, how did Michael McKee allegedly get in the house?
How does this happen? This is such a rare thing, and 2 people that, not a single person could say a bad word about them.
The Court TV podcast will return.
It was a place where we would all gather together for holidays, birthdays, just a random weekend. They were always having people over. They were just the center of a huge community of friends and family that they were the glue.
They were the center of their community, right? Their friends and family. And the house was also. It was the gathering place. It's where they got married. It's where they were raising their children. It's where they would invite friends and family. And ultimately, it was where they were murdered. Let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas, who's in Columbus, Ohio. Cody, you were at the house today. What did you see?
Yeah, Vinnie, we always love taking our viewers to the scene to give them a better feel for the landscape. Now, as far as what I saw here in the Wineland Park neighborhood, I saw 2 obvious cameras across the street and ample places where Michael McKee could have parked his car, allegedly, if he committed these murders. Take a look at this. So we're headed down the sidewalk now, here in this up-and-coming neighborhood of Wineland Park in Columbus, Ohio. If you look across the street over there, that second home from the left, that is the home of Spencer and Monique Tepe. That is where the crimes occurred. Michael McKee, the alleged murderer, the alleged double murderer in these crimes, that's the ex-husband of Monique Tepe. Now, what we do know is that according to investigators and according to court documents, Michael McKee was caught by his car. They tracked his car back to Illinois, where he is a licensed surgeon. They had footage of his car. Now, how could police get footage of his car? Well, if we stop here and look up, right here in front of me, on this pole right across from the house, not only do we see the big police camera at the top with 3 different cameras on it, right below it, we see the black flock camera. We know those companies, police and flock coincide with each other to solve cases like this one. So probably one of these cameras right here is what caught his car arriving before the murders, the window of time that the police say the murders occurred, and then leaving shortly afterwards. Now, if we continue across this street, we'll let this car turn real quick, right here in front of me. Now, if we continue across the street, you know, the big question that's left is, how did Michael McKee get inside this home? Because the home had no signs of forced entry at all. And in fact, the Tepe's children, only aged 4 and 1 years old, were still left unharmed inside when the parents were murdered. But how could he get inside there? And also, where could he have parked? Well, of course, we can see he could have parked in any number of areas out here, on this side of the road, on that side of the road. But an option as to how he could have gotten in the home, we know it has a keypad. Maybe he had something that could zoom in on the keypad across the street. It had to have a serious zoom, and maybe he was stalking, spying on Monique in a fit of jealousy, zoomed in with something that maybe had night vision on it, where he could see what the code was that she typed in on the keypad. There was also a keypad on the back door of the house when we walked by in the alleyway earlier. But any number of places out here is where Michael McKee could have parked. In front of the house, behind the house, on this side street over here, where he could have parked. Any number of places. But again, we do know police tracked his car back to Illinois, back to Rockford, Illinois, where he is a licensed vascular surgeon. Michael McKee now in custody for the double murders of Spencer and Monique Tepe. And Vinny, that just remains the biggest question here, right? How could he have gotten inside that house, a house that showed no signs of forced entry that night?
Absolutely. And we've been saying that from the beginning. It had to be someone that had the code, knew the code, or the door was left open, right? That's what we've been saying. But now we know who the suspect is, and that makes our question much more specific. And the next question we have is, how did Michael McKee allegedly get in the house? Now that we know who we're talking about, how would he allegedly get into the house? Still with me, our podcast hosts, Joel Waldman and Brandy Churchwell. Brandy, what are your thoughts here on how he could have gotten into that home without any forced entry?
I mean, the fact that he drove all the way there already tells you that this wasn't impulsive. He went there knowing he was going to get inside. That makes me think he possibly had the code. Now, I know that some of us, I know before I got into true crime, I used the same code for literally everything. Getting into true crime, you know, I changed that habit real quick, but I know that that is common. So with him having a familiarity with, you know, Monique, with them having been married before, maybe it's a situation where she uses the same code. Maybe the door was unlocked, but I feel like the other option could be, you know, if he's banging on the door in the, you know, early morning hours, and, you know, if Spencer comes to let him in and all he does is flash the gun and say, you know, I'm coming inside, that is an option as well. But for me, I feel like the most likely option is maybe he did have that code.
All right, Joel, what are your thoughts here? We've been saying this from the beginning, not knowing who it was. Now we have someone who's been implicated here. So how do you believe Michael McKee, the ex-husband from a decade beforehand, could have gotten into that home?
I mean, the real short answer, without speculation, is we just simply don't know, because Columbus police haven't really revealed that piece of information, but they say it happened without breaking into the house. I spoke to a friend who's an investigative journalist, a very good one, and he actually tried using a magnet. Now, I haven't seen this done. I just heard it, you know, orally, so I don't know how you do it physically, but apparently with a magnet, these locks are fairly easy to break into. So that's a new possibility. The other one is what Brandy alluded to, which is maybe he brandished a gun at the door and kind of forced his way in. Now, obviously, we just saw your reporter in the excellent reportage from out in front of the scene, and that's a busy street, right? So you wouldn't think that Michael McKee would want to flash a gun for too long with police driving by and other people driving by. And obviously, the fourth possibility is that somehow he knew this key code. I wouldn't put it past this guy, knowing what we know now, that maybe he hacked into a computer, maybe he knew a previous passcode and figured out the passcode somehow, and that is how he ultimately gained entry.
Yeah, and Brandy, your point is really well taken, that you're making that big drive that night. You're not going there not knowing that you're going to be able, whether or not you're going to be able to gain entry. And I guess you know that they're home as well, which is another part of the equation. in being able to do that. I was thinking, and Cody kind of showed us, if someone is stalking someone and you're trying to steal a code, that would show a lot more premeditation to all of this, even more than is alleged by who the suspect is in all this. That's a possibility. But whatever it is, it took knowing how to do it, like the confidence to show up, I'm getting in and I'm doing it on this night.
Yeah, I think, something that's really interesting to me, too, it really makes me want to see his Google search history. And maybe that's the trial watcher in me, but it makes me wonder, is this something that he Googled? Is this something that he looked into? Like Joel was saying, if you can use a magnet to open these things or whatever it is, if there's ways to get into the home, it makes me the investigator in me wants to see his Google search history to see, are these things that he looked into?
Yeah, and Joel, as this case will go to trial, and I think that's going to be a big issue for prosecutors here, right? The defense is not going to wave the flag. They're going to put up a fight, and I think one of their issues will be, well, how did he get in there? And I think that's something that prosecutors will want to be able to figure out and explain to the jury.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. Obviously, you don't need motive for a criminal trial, and I'm going to defer to you, Vinny, being the one-time prosecutor. But yeah, for sure, they're going to make the case that he did get in, and he did it using X, Y, and Z mechanisms to do so. And the criminal defense clearly is going to try to muddy the waters and say, hey, this guy maybe never got in, if they make the case that he wasn't on scene at all, which is doubtful when all the forensics come back from this case. But just to put a little cherry on top, we Google mapped it, and it is like a 6 hour and 48 minute drive, 6 hour and 48 minutes from Rockford, Illinois to Columbus, Ohio. And it does raise a great point. Are you going to drive that whole distance not knowing the code to get into the house, only to have to turn back around? I'm curious if he'd ever did a dry run and maybe found the code during a dry run, but still a lot of questions that need to be answered.
Yeah, you're talking 13 hours of driving, right? Then plus the time that you're going to spend there. There's still a lot of questions in this case, but we have a suspect tonight in custody. Joel Waldman, Surviving the Survivor, Brandy Churchwell, 13th Juror Podcast, Crime Junkie Jury on YouTube. Thank you both so much. Still to come, how important will the surveillance video be in this case?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the murders of Monique and Spencer Tepe. The accused, Monique's vascular surgeon ex-husband, who she was briefly married to 10 years ago. Here's the story. The murders of Monique and Spencer Tepe shattered a quiet Ohio neighborhood and left two young children without parents. The couple was found shot to death in their bedroom after Spencer failed to show up for work, prompting frantic calls and a welfare check. Investigators quickly ruled out a murder-suicide, noting that no weapon was found and there were no signs of forced entry. For weeks, the case haunted the community with more questions than answers. Then came a stunning development. Police arrested Monique's ex-husband, accusing him of carrying out the execution-style killings while the children slept nearby. Investigators allege the crime was targeted and deliberate, and now the suspect is in custody facing aggravated murder charges. The one big piece of evidence that was released by investigators looking for the help from the public was that surveillance video of the person of interest that they wanted to speak to. Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas is live in Columbus, Ohio. Cody, we saw that surveillance video in the alleyway. You were there today in the neighborhood. What does that alleyway look like?
Well, Vinny, the alleyway is this long stretch that sits directly behind the home and the collection of houses there on the street. As you walk down it, it's probably 200, 250 yards. You can clearly see the divide where you can tell the neighborhood is transitioning. But aside from that, Vinny, the thing about it is cameras, cameras, and more cameras. Take a look. We're here on the sidewalk now, right here in front of the home of Spencer and Monique Tepe. This is where the crimes occurred, in this brown, grayish colored home here behind me. Now, we've seen the images, the video that police have put out of the person of interest before they arrested Michael McKee. It was in an alleyway here near the homes. Now, if we walk up this way up the sidewalk, and before we get here behind the homes, one thing I do want to point out here on the neighbor's home, we see 1, 2, 3 cameras that could capture anyone coming down this sidewalk, any person, any car coming down this general area. But let's walk up here behind these homes to take a look at what's back here. So we get here and we turn the corner. You heard me mention that person of interest video that police put out. Here we are on the alleyway behind the homes. Now, you see on either side, these are garages to the corresponding homes. This garage right here, actually, is the home that corresponds with Spencer and Monique's home. But right here, in that alleyway video, we see a bunch of blue trash cans that we see down this whole stretch. But right here, on the neighbor's home, we see 2 cameras right here that can pick anyone up walking down this alleyway. Now, I want you to get a good look. It's a pretty long alley. You can look all the way down here. You see a car down there towards the end. And then you can look all the way over here. Plenty of room to get caught walking down this alleyway. And actually, if we come over, we can see another camera on the back of this brick building, which looks like a business right here. Doesn't look like a residential area, but another camera right here on this building. So this is the alleyway that person of interest video was caught on, that was put out into the public by police before Michael McKee was arrested. But we've zeroed in on this specific area of the alleyway, and specifically that camera there on this private garage. This is the area believed to be where the person of interest was captured walking towards Spencer and Monique's home. Now, why do we believe it was this specific area and that specific camera that captured the person of interest? Well, we isolated 2 signifiers in the video, one being this light seafoam green door here next to this black mailbox, with this black gutter running from top to the bottom of this building. You can clearly see that in the video of the person of interest that we took a still image and we isolated just to see what we can see to signify the area of this alleyway. And also, the second one, now that we're out here in person, you can see that this is a stone wall here, but in the video, it kind of looks like this stone column near the person of interest's feet. This is also clearly pointed out in the video once you zoom in, isolate, and just really capture what was going on in that video that police put out ahead of Michael McKee's arrest. But again, this is believed to be the direction in this area of the alleyway that the person of interest is walking down towards Spencer and Monique's home, down there towards the left, on the night of the murders on December 30th, 2025. Now, Vinny, just want to reiterate, we are not saying that person of interest is actually Michael McKee. They are just a person of interest as it was labeled by police. But this is the video that police put out ahead of Michael McKee's arrest, which leads me to believe there was a reason for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cody Thomas doing great work tonight in the cold in Columbus. Appreciate it all. We'll speak again. Brings us to the next question in our investigation. How important will the surveillance video be in this case? Seems like it's already been extremely important in finding a person of interest, finding a suspect. Joining me to talk about all this, the host of Gray Hughes Investigates, Gray Hughes, who helped us go through that video and has a great analysis on his YouTube channel. Also with us, Ohio criminal defense attorney Don Malarchik is with us as well. Okay, let's start with you, Gray. What are your thoughts here? Now Cody's been there, he's seen it, seems to corroborate everything that you were figuring out in looking at that video. How significant, how important is all of it?
I think it's crucial to the case. I think it, obviously, I think he came in from the north of the house, so maybe on 9th Street or 11th Street, he parked the car. It could have been further, but he came from that direction, and I think that sort of explains why possibly he's not on multiple other surveillance cameras, even the ones that I think Cody just pointed out on that last garage in the alley. It didn't, we don't know what they have. They might have 75 videos that have this guy walking around on it, but he definitely came from the north. I doubt he came in from the south, walked way up and came back down. And I think what it's also going to show is how long was he at the crime scene? I mean, that's something we don't know. They did say between 2 and 5, right? But then in the document, I think it said something like 3:52 was the time of the actual murders. So I think that they were able to hear audio on some of these other cameras and distinguish a gunshot sound to come up with the precise time of the shootings. I don't know how else they would know exactly when that was. And apparently they tracked him all the way back, from his car to the house and then back to the car and then all the way back to where he lives. In the documents, it mentioned something regarding that, like they were able to, said, detectives located the vehicle in Rockford, Illinois, and found evidence of McKee in possession of the vehicle prior to and after the homicide. So they were able to track it all the way back there, and then maybe they found something like toll booth tickets or something in his car that let him know that he'd crossed and went back and forth.
Yeah. Don, how important do you think this surveillance video is going to be? It seems like it's already telling a very compelling story.
Yeah, absolutely, Vinny. I'm sure what investigators are doing right now is trying to identify this individual we see in the surveillance video as Michael McKee. They're going to have the ability to estimate the approximate height, approximate weight of the individual that we see here on this surveillance. They should be able to zoom into a potential brand of footwear. Vinny, I had an arson case in Akron, Ohio, where we had a similar surveillance video, and they studied the gait of my client, how he walked. And they compared that to him walking and seeing him out on the street, and he had a very distinctive walk. We know Mr. McKee played football, right, in high school. Does he have any football injuries? Is there any type of specific gait, anything that would be a telltale sign that this individual walking right here is, in fact, Michael McKee?
Gray, I look at the story that it's telling. It reminds me a little bit of what happened in the Idaho 4 case, where they were able to track the killer that way, all of his movements. It's going to be, I think, interesting to see what other cameras picked him up. Are there gaps in the cameras at all where he's going from one to the next, and there's a point of time where he is not seen? And does it show him getting into the car? Does it show that car pulling away? Does it give a time frame that fits their timeline of when this murder took place?
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed with the summary of the probable cause. It's like 2 paragraphs. I'm sure the actual probable cause is a long, detailed document that really lays out all the different times he's seen on camera. And, it's really interesting how they said 2 to 5, but you remember in the Delphi case, they said, the car parked between 12 and 5. And we know it wasn't even close to that time when Richard Allen's vehicle parked over there at the abandoned CPS building. So they just kind of give you these wide ranges, but we know in the document it said that at the time of death was like 3:52, or that's the time that the murders took place. So I really want to see and get the details of when they know that he parked the car, how long it took for him to get back to the car, and then what type of information do they have that sort of captured him on the entire trip back, et cetera. And one thing, I actually think that they might have been aware that there was an issue with this ex-husband. I don't know if, did you guys remember in the 911 call, the owner of the actual dental office, he said that he was more concerned that the wife didn't answer, Monique. And why would you say that? Unless there was something that Spencer told him at work saying, hey, this guy, he's kind of bothering my wife. And that's why he was very concerned when the wife didn't answer. So I'm just wondering if there was some information that was told to the owner.
Right. And one thing that has cropped up, we were talking about it, Don, is that there seemed to be something on the family law docket from September from a 10-year-old divorce case, which to me is completely bizarre.
It's really weird. I mean, it's so out of character. As we've talked about, these two individuals were married for a very short period of time. The divorce was, seemingly non-consequential. They didn't have kids. They resolved the whole divorce case within a month. So the fact that something got filed in September and here she is dead in December is incredibly telling. What was filed? What was the hearing? What did that trigger? And looking into that is going to be a really key piece to tie this guy, McKee, into this homicide.
All right, Don Malarczyk, Gray User, sticking around. Coming up next, what other evidence will investigators be looking for?
You don't know how to tell a 4-year-old that they're never going to see their mommy or daddy again. It's how do you, and how does the 4-year-old understand?
This is the Court TV Podcast.
We're still in shock. That just going through all of the, all of the types of grief all at once.
That is the brother-in-law of Spencer Tepe, who's been the family spokesperson and has really painted a very clear picture of this loving home, this loving couple, and this wonderful family, and the children now who have been orphaned. And the suspect is the ex-husband. This, again, let's take a look at the video. This was the key piece of evidence that was released by investigators showing the person of interest. And as we've been saying the entire hour, surveillance video, surveillance video, surveillance video. Here's from the affidavit that Gray was talking about. During the subsequent investigation, detectives were able to identify a suspect through neighborhood video surveillance. The suspect was tracked to a vehicle which arrived just prior to the homicides and left shortly after the homicides. Detectives were able to identify this vehicle further and link it to Michael McKee. Detectives located the vehicle in Rockford, Illinois, and found evidence of McKee in possession of the vehicle prior to and after the homicides, right? You want to prove that he had the car beforehand, he had it afterwards, therefore, you can deduce that he had it during the time that the crime was committed. So they've got all the surveillance video. But what else? That brings us to the next question in our investigation, which is, what other evidence will investigators be looking for? Now they've got their suspect, time to execute some warrants. Still with us, Gray Hughes and Don Malarczyk. Don, they're getting warrants. What do you think they're going to get the warrants for? Where are they going to look? What are they hoping to find?
Well, the gold standard of evidence, obviously, is DNA. So they're looking for two things. Number one, at the crime scene, did Michael McKee deposit any piece of himself there? Did he leave behind any DNA, any blood? Was there a struggle? We know that there are 3 9mm casings that were left behind. Does Michael McKee's DNA appear on those 3 casings? Does he have fingerprints on those 3 casings? Does he leave any fingerprints behind? Any articles that would tie him to that crime scene? The second thing, Vinny, that they're doing right now is executing search warrants in Illinois and anywhere Michael McKee would have been. The second question is, did Michael McKee take any of the 2 victims with him? Is there any of their blood, any of their DNA, fibers, hair fibers, clothing fibers, any materials from the house? Did he take them with him when he fled to Illinois? Those are the 2 big questions, in addition to, looking at his phone, going through his Google account, what kind of searches did he do? They're going to be looking at all this flock evidence. We can keep that for about 30 days. So what were his patterns of travel? Did he stop at a gas station along the way from Illinois to Ohio? Did he stop at a fast food place? Are there any cameras at all that would put him in that vehicle that was found at the crime scene?
All right, Gray, what are you looking for? What are you waiting to see investigators uncover here?
Well, he covered a lot of them that I had thought of. I would say, I would check those two fences behind by the little parking garage behind the house near the alley. There's two fences on either side that he could likely climbed over. I don't think he went to the front of the house. And I would check there for maybe footprints, DNA also in that area. I also, obviously I was thinking about his cell phone. It might be important. I would imagine, but believe it or not, these criminals are still idiots after all this time, that he would have left the phone at home, and that would tell a story as well. You got a guy that's 6-hour drive away. He has a car, and he's in all the way over in Columbus, Ohio, and yet his phone's at home, pinging, because he thought that, it'll look like I'm pinging there. They won't catch my car over here. And I think that would tell a big story in terms of premeditation as well. This whole case is premeditated. I think today they upped the charges where now it's like the death penalty or life without parole options. And I think, the fact that it takes 6 hours to drive there and he goes there late at night and he goes in there, this is obviously completely planned. I think the internet search activity might be incredibly interesting. There were some people out there that suggested that maybe he watched the wedding video multiple times, and maybe there's something to that. He seems like somebody that was kind of like obsessed over the years, and maybe he tried to get married again to keep his mind off of it. And then when he got divorced, he just kept thinking about it. But like you said on the previous segment, what is that from last year that's in the divorce hearings that they were going to have? There was nothing listed in terms of what it was. And I think that's a huge thing, that they had a connection more recently.
Yeah. I'm interested, Don, in the search history to see if there was any stalking taking place, any sort of plotting, whether he's trying to figure out where she is, where she's going, and whether or not he took any video ahead of time.
Oh, absolutely, Vinny. That would be the motive that the police are looking for. I'm sure they are talking to Monique's friends, her family. They're going through her phone. Were there any unexplained calls, any unexplained messages, text messages? Did she report anything odd? Seeing someone following her, a car, tracking her, anything like that.
Yeah.
That's going to be huge. That's going to be key.
Absolutely.
The big question here is, what is the motive? What was going on in this guy's head? After
trying to figure out why
years?
after all these years. Don Malarczyk, we're out of time. Great to see you. Gray Use Investigates on YouTube. Thank you both so much. When I look at Monique's wedding photos with Spencer, the warmth and love, it just hits you. It's so real, so genuine. Then when I look at her wedding photo with Michael David McKee, to me, it's awkward and uncomfortable. These photos do speak volumes, but still don't truly tell us, like we're all asking, why he allegedly did it. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues. There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.